This is a 102.7 FM Toowoomba original podcast.
Welcome everybody to my podcast, Big Little Small Talk. I'm Megan O'Hara-Sullivan and I love to talk, but I also love to listen. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the episode. And today we're talking to Margaret Turnbull, who is the president of the Friends of the Empire Theatre, or Queen Margaret, actually. I've heard someone reference you, Margaret. Welcome to Big Little Small Talk.
Thank you very much for having me. It's lovely.
Tell me the story behind Queen Margaret.
Oh, I think that's just something Mark and Meredith coined from Encores, because obviously we worked very closely together since the theatre was reopened in 1997. I think he popped it into Facebook sometime.
And you've been forever now.
And it's stuck.
Yeah. So what is the Friends of the Empire Theatre?
The Friends of the Empire Theatre is basically a support organisation for the theatre. It was started right back in 1997 when the theatre was reopened. That is its main purpose, to support the theatre in any way that we can. We do all the ushering for the theatre, and we get paid for that as a group, as an organisation, but everything that we do goes straight back into the theatre. So in the years, nearly 28 years now, we're up into the $900,000 that we've put back into the theatre.
Wow.
So it's a great win-win situation.
Yeah. So just explain to me, you've got a group, and how many are there? There's over 200 members.
There's over 200 members, yes, probably about 150 active volunteers. Some people choose to be Friends of the Empire purely as just wanting to support by belonging to them sort of thing, but most of them are active volunteers.
Right. And then you charge out your hours.
Yes.
Is that how it works?
Yes. So how it works is when somebody comes and wants to use the theatre, they have to pay, in any theatre, they have to pay front of house fees for ushers and stage door attendants and things like that. With the Empire, they still pay that, but the theatre has a schedule of fees that it charges clients, and then it has a schedule of amounts that it pays the Friends to do it. So the Friends do it, obviously, all as volunteers, but the Friends of the Empire get paid each show to do that, and that's how we really earn our money. I mean, obviously we have a small fee for membership each year, but that's not really how we make our money. But that's basically how it is. And it also has an advantage that our front of house fees, because of that, are probably cheaper than the metropolitan areas or somewhere like that has a fully paid staff.
Well, that's why I wanted to ask you, like, is the Empire unique in this situation where they have this whole band of volunteers, or?
No, it's not unique. A lot of the theatres in Queensland have them, but dare I say, it sounds really a bit woofty, but I think we have the best.
But what did it sound a bit woofty?
Well,
what's woofty?
I suppose just blowing our own trumpet or something. But we have a very strong group of volunteers, which some of the theatres do struggle to get it. But we've always been very fortunate. We've always had a very strong group, and I guess Toowoomba's still a big country, and we like it to be like that from an atmosphere point of view. And our volunteers manage to give to all our clients or patrons as they come in the door, "Welcome to my home." And that's...
Well, tell me about the training that you do if someone comes along and says that they want.
There is training. The big thing about the Friends of the Empire, they're not self-run, but we're an incorporated body and we have a committee. But as far as everything that they do in the theatre staff train them and are responsible for what they do within the theatre. And that, I think, what probably makes us a little bit different to other theatres. In lots of other theatres, I've been around a lot in my time, the volunteers tend to run themselves. And when you've got a group of volunteers, I observed that there was always a group of very strong people, and they tended to take over, and then the other people tended to fall off, and so they didn't end up with so many. But in our situation at the Empire Theatre, as a committee, we don't have anything to do with any activities that the Friends do in the theatre. I mean, we do them with everyone else, but the staff of the theatre definitely run what we do, and they train us and that sort of thing, yes.
Okay. So what would be a really major faux pas for a volunteer? Like, would they be getting too chatty with the clients?
Not really.
or-
The only faux pas is if they got a bit cross with someone once because and that can be tested sometimes, let me tell you. But there's not really that's it. All that we ask of our volunteers, they're all very well trained in evacuation and they're trained every year. And they know what they have to do. And really it's just to make sure that they are nice, I suppose, to everybody as they come in. And sometimes you can be trialled.
So what's really annoying? Is it all the people who come late, is it?
Not so much. Oh, no, because there's lots of reasons why they can come late. Couldn't get a park, or that's the favourite one. Mostly, the biggest problem we would have would be with patrons who might arrive who are a little bit inebriated when they arrive. Very hard to have enough time to get totally drunk in the theatre during a show, but and that's when it might cause a little bit of an issue if there happen to be, some people are very happy drunks, but other people might not be.
Fair enough too. So did I read somewhere, have I got this right? You wouldn't possibly provide 8,000 volunteer hours each week, is that right?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't have figures like that at my hand, but just keeping in mind that if we've got a full house in the main theatre, that takes about almost 20 volunteers by the time you do every door, the front, the stage door, selling merchandise. So that could be that. We've got 4 venues at the theatre in the precinct, and they can all be running at the same time. The smaller venues don't take as many people, but it can add up. And some shows can go for 5 or so hours, and from when they come in before the show to when they leave after the show. So I don't really say that I could verify that figure, but it can be
It's
quite
something.
sizable.
It's 8,000 volunteer hours every something. Now, whether
Yeah.
I've got that right
Well,
for
I really can't verify that, but yeah, it's quite substantial.
So the 4 venues that you mentioned, we've got the main
We've got the
theatre.
main theatre, then behind the main theatre is our studio room, which is a smaller room, and all our rooms are multifaceted. They can be used for anything, but it gets used quite often for smaller local drama companies that might want to do something. We've got seating that we bring in, tiered seating, a movable tiered seating that comes in, and you can have about 120 people audience, which is if you're a small little local group wanting to do a show, that's quite all that they want. And the council does help those people, that they're locals, and they call it homegrown theatre. And they do get assistance with being able to use that room. So that's the studio. And apart from that, we can have functions in it. We can it can be used for all sorts of things. Then we've got our Armitage Centre, which is 310 seats, and it's a very busy place as well. It was built a bit with young people in mind because a lot of things don't need to pay for the big theatre. The smaller theatre does it fine, and it's a very busy place for that reason. And then we've got the Church Theatre, which is a lovely venue for lots of different things. It's particularly lovely for a chamber orchestra situation or something like that. But yeah, so that's the 4.
Yeah, amazing. Do the volunteers, when you say, "Yes, I'll do a shift," I can't imagine the rostering. Who does the rostering?
Okay, our visitors service coordinator, Jamie, does all the rostering. So how she does it is the month before, she will send out a list to all the volunteers of what shows and what times and where they are available. She then has a form that they can fill in and send back. It's mostly all done electronically. They can fill in that, I can do this, 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 and this, or I can't do that, or we're off caravanning for a couple of months. We don't really mind. That's part of it. And then when she gets that, she just volunteers according to who's available for which particular show, and then she sends out an email to each volunteer that's working to tell them when they're working.
Margaret, I'm not being disparaging, but the average age of the volunteers, it's
I've
up there, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's up there. So am I,
Aren't we all?
We all. It is, but there are some a bit younger, but most it is by large and older. But there's some are quite old, some are very sprightly. I guess one of the biggest things I enjoy about it is there's a lot of people that volunteer that are a lot older than me, and I just look up to them and admire them when I watch them work because they're fantastic. And then there's a lot that mightn't be all that good health-wise, but they might have been volunteering for years. And it's my perspective that we could do anything to keep them being able to come and still join in, because from a social point of view, and that's the thing about the Friends, I see volunteers helping other volunteers that, one of our volunteers has power of attorney for an older volunteer who's not able to work anymore, but but other volunteers will pick them up, or if they're sick, they'll look after them. So it's a lovely thing.
It's a network
and
effect.
it'd be nice to have a whole lot of young volunteers, but the young people are very busy these days, and we understand that. And as people retire, they come to the theatre to volunteer after they've retired, and they've still got a lot of living to do. They enjoy the social aspect of it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I was thinking more like, how do you survive a 5-hour shift and you sit down? Do you get to sit down and watch the show?
there are. Well, I always say if you want to see a show, you need to buy a ticket, because you might see a show and you'll probably be lucky and see shows, but that doesn't necessarily happen. But there are ushers' seats along the sides of the theatre and upstairs. So the volunteers can do that, can sit there and do that. And Jamie will always roster according to people's abilities. So if we've got a volunteer who might have a problem with steps, we won't put them upstairs because there's a lot of steps to run up and down, and just that sort of thing. But we can cater to that.
So I'm sort of thinking more, if someone sat down and just fell fast asleep and, would they wake up at the end? Someone has to shake them up.
I think one of their fellow volunteers would wake them up in that time. I won't say it hasn't happened, because it has once or twice, but not very often.
It's just incredible. And I want to talk too about the group of people that you are, because you not only you get other things, don't you? Don't you have an incentive program?
We do. We have an incentive program where we get little VIP tickets, so many per show, depending what's the size of the show, as to how many tickets you might get for working that. Like if it's a big show that's going to last a little while, you might get 5 of these incentive points. If it's a small show, you might get 2. Now, those incentive tickets can then be used to get free seats to not every show, because we can only give free seats to shows that we buy. If someone hires the theatre, we can't ask them to give. But there's still quite a number of shows, and the Friends can come and use those tickets. They can accumulate them, and they can use them to get free tickets to see shows.
Yeah, how wonderful. Are most people who do the volunteering, have they been involved with the theatre or
No,
theatre goers?
not necessarily. Some of them wouldn't have a clue about the theatre when they first come. But I think they probably enjoy the theatre and like the theatre, but most of them wouldn't have ever been involved before they come in. So they have a big learning curve, but it's great. They can learn all about it.
Yeah. And what about the being part of the Friends group? You have Friends functions, don't you? Friends events?
We do. Well, basically, we don't have that many, but we do have Juliana. When she became general manager or a CEO, she brought in a show for the Friends. So towards the end of the year, she actually brings an act from Brisbane or somewhere, and they come up and they do it in the main theatre on the main stage, just for the volunteers. They have the show and then they have afternoon tea. And that's just something that's a relatively new thing, but it's very much appreciated by the volunteers.
Well, look, I'm glad that you mentioned Juliana, because I have got a quote here from her, and she said to me, "I am not sure if the Friends would still be in existence or have as strong a membership of over 200 friends without Margaret. As president, her no-nonsense approach keeps everyone in line. I love Margaret, and I would do anything for the Friends." So there you are.
And that is so true, what she says. I am a bit
No nonsense.
no,
What's that code for,
I
Margaret?
just don't. Well, if someone says something that's really silly, I'll probably tell them that it is nicely,
With a lovely
smile on my face. But yeah, I'm a straight shooter. I think that's probably what it might mean. And Juliana does love the volunteers, and she would do anything for us, and she supports the volunteers like you wouldn't believe. And I do hold the feelings reciprocal. I hold her in very high regard.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely to hear because we've had Kerry Saul,
Yes,
the
yeah.
other long-term general
Yes,
manager.
yes.
On
Oh, I've
Big
had
Little Small
several
Talk
through
as well.
my time.
Yeah.
28 years,
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, Juliana is indeed a breath of fresh air.
And a fellow feminist, I would imagine, Margaret.
Yes. She's a terribly nice person, but she's a listener and she's a doer. And they're two very important things to my mind.
Interesting. If you've just tuned in, you're on Big Little Small Talk. We're talking to Margaret Turnbull, who is the president of Friends of the Empire Theatre. Margaret, for the people who may sort of be new to Toowoomba, can you give us a little bit of the history? So the Empire, our beautiful Empire Theatre, was built in 1911. What happened after that?
Okay, it was built in 1911 by some local businessmen. It was built to house silent movies, which was the thing then. And that was what it really did. In 1928, they did some technical upgrades to bring in talkies, as they called them then, so that we had sound within the theatre. Then in February 1933, there was a big fire and the building was basically burnt to the ground. Our two side walls were all that was left, and we've still got them and they're deemed quite sound. But that was in February 1933. It was an electrical fire. No one was hurt or anything like that, but it was huge. But the biggest miracle, I think, is that the owners then decided to demolish and rebuild, clear and rebuild, and they opened the Empire Theatre that we see now by November that very same year in 1933, which I think is just amazing. And from then on, it went mainly still for movies, but there was some. I've grown up here all my life, so I can remember a few live things there, but mostly movies. And that went through until really the early 1970s. And then with television and drive-in movies had an impact on the ticket sales. And we had the Strand Theatre, a beautiful Strand Theatre around the corner, and the Empire closed. And it basically sat closed for 25 years. By that time, it was owned by the Queensland government. And it was used for a few things, none of which had much to do with theatre. And then around the mid-90s, there was a group of us, and we're in the middle of it. And we thought it'd be lovely to be able to refurbish and reopen that theatre because it just stood there, sort of thing. And that did start a lot of controversy, probably one of Toowoomba's greatest controversies, which I won't go into.
No, I want you to go into it. I really want you to go into it.
It was pretty nasty and horrible.
I mean, it is, Margaret, it is a fascinating piece of Toowoomba's history. If you wouldn't mind.
It was pretty horrible. Some nasty things said and done. It raged for 12 months, and to the point where I've lived here all my life. I've been involved in community things all my life. When the theatre did reopen in 97, I had people that wouldn't talk to me because I worked there.
So explain to people listening what the two camps were. What was
one camp wanted to knock the Empire Theatre down and build a car park and then build a flat floor venue somewhere else. I never did discover where somewhere else was, but somewhere else. So, and the other half wanted to refurbish and reopen it. And it went after that 12 months, it came to a vote. By then, the Toowoomba City Council, it was then, owned it. There was 8 councillors and a mayor. 4 councillors voted to knock it down and 4 voted to refurbish and reopen. And the mayor at the time, Ross Miller, used his casting vote.
And then what happened at the next council election?
He lost his mayoralty over that because it probably took about 5 years for all the ill feeling to go down. Personally, I lived there. I was there with it. And it took about 5 years. And then people started to come up and say, oh, we were wrong. Because they couldn't get over how much it was going to cost, and it was a waste of money, and the doors had closed in 6 months. And, I have to say, Ross Miller, great deal of foresight and courage on his part to make it happen, but it went close to not having it.
Yeah. And you said that you were a part of the original group that, so what did you do? How did you kind of mobilise people?
Yeah, it was mobilised just through people. We were all a group of people that were all involved with Choral Society or the Eisteddfod or something else like that. And that's really how we all knew each other. And that's how it came. John Penny who we don't have anymore, but he basically started it, and a committee was formed, and that's where it went from. And then, it just kept rolling along for those 12 months. There was meetings, and there was town meetings and all sorts of things, about it. But it did happen. It was the theatre was checked by engineers, and it was deemed to be quite sound and good for another 400 years, they reckon. So that was good enough. So it was just really a group of like-minded people. To be quite honest.
And it's really the jewel in the crown
It
of
is,
Toowoomba's
yes.
Arts Centre. Margaret, you were saying that it was built as a theatre for silent movies. Why would they have had a stage? And when did the proscenium arch
The
get built?
proscenium arch, all that came in 1933. So there is a photograph upstairs in the foyer of the original building, and it was very much more a hall-type building. There wasn't a stage. That was built on later. And to be quite honest, in 97, when the theatre was refurbished, all that from the stage back, it was really a tin, I'd have to say, and it was demolished and rebuilt. So what we've got now is a beautiful old theatre and state-of-the-art facilities backstage, and we've got best of both worlds, as I always love to say.
Because people do come and are blown away by how beautiful art. People
Yes.
talk about it across
They
the world.
They
really.
do. We have visitors from everywhere, and it's quite amazing, really. They don't expect to find it in a place, but it is the largest regional theatre in Australia.
Isn't it?
But they just don't expect to find anything quite like it.
Yes, amazing. And do you know the story of the 16-year-old boy who smelt the smoke when...
Oh, there's a lot of stories. I don't know the one of the 16-year-old boy. All I know is that one of the ladies who used to usher at the theatre came in, and I do know that that's right because her nephew ended up being very involved in the theatre, so I know that that's rigidage. I know when the lights went on, and they were, those big levers in those days, and that's what started the fire. I don't know who pulled the lever. It could have been a 16-year-old. I don't know if I believe that one, but that's it. It was started. It was an electrical fire. There was nothing sinister or horrible about it. And you see, it was full of films, and the material that films were made from in those days was very flammable. So it just went up. It was huge. Vic's parents lived over near the General Hospital, and they came down to see it because they saw the fire from over there. It was such a big fire.
I wanted to know about you and Vic, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but I just want to finish off with the volunteers and some of the functions that you've had at the... So you have weddings, you have comedians,
we have everything. Do you
funerals?
We do have a few funerals in our church theatre.
Right. Okay. That's given me a few ideas now. What do you love to volunteer for? What sort of things?
Me personally, I love volunteering for the things that are put on for young children, because I have a very strong belief that they're our future, and there's nothing gives me more pleasure than stand out the front and greet shows of children coming to see a children's show. I just love it. They're all so excited, and it's just a wonderful thing. So that's my favourite thing to do.
Okay.
Very a bit indulgent, but that's
No, well, I have another friend, Meryl Miller, not naming any names,
Yes.
who said to me to ask you about who may have been the rudest person you've ever dealt with at the Empire. Can you say?
I suppose I can. She's still alive, but she's not Australian. Ian Moore was probably one
Tell
of
us
the
the
rudest.
story about...
Well, she just was not of a good place when she came. She was cranky and everything, and she stopped about 2/3 of the way through the show. Just stopped, walked off stage, had a limo waiting for her, and got in it and drove off.
Wow, that's chilling. I've got chills. So what do you do in a circumstance
Well, you
like
can't
that?
do anything. You
Just say to the people...
Yeah, you just have to say, well, I mean, you don't really say anything too much. They probably were all aware that what was happening, but you don't have. It's a very rare occurrence, I have to say.
Yeah.
Most of the people that come to the theatre are absolutely lovely.
Are they?
Yeah.
And tell me about during COVID, how did you cope with that and dealing with
It was
artists?
hard.
Yeah.
It was very hard. We did have to close totally for a tiny bit, but we were very lucky in that Arts Queensland helped us put on a few shows because we were one of the few shows that were big enough that could allow for all the people sitting right apart and only put 200 people in a 1,500 seat theatre and put a show on. And Arts Queensland helped us do that with a few shows, which let us sort of keep going. But it was very hard. We had to let go all our casual staff, and we have a huge lot of casual staff. But I have to say, I was retired, and I sort of retired just before COVID. So it was a bit lucky on my part, I suppose. But our permanent staff through that time, my hat just goes off to them. They all did everything. They all did their RSA so they could help in the bar. They cleaned the theatre all the time. When there's a show on and you had to spray everything every half hour, you could see any staff member, no matter who they are or what they were doing, they could be on that duty to be doing that. And it was just the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. What about artists? Did you notice any sort of change in attitude? Or I was thinking as you're saying that, were they incredibly grateful to come back?
They were grateful to get to a theatre, but sometimes it was a lot, sometimes some of those people had to cancel 4 times before they finally got to the theatre. So they were indeed very happy to be there. But it was a very stressful time for everyone. But I feel we probably got through a little bit better than others. But that's easy for me to say because I wasn't actually working at that time. But I am in awe of the staff of the theatre at that time. Yeah.
It's a lovely story to hear that. Tell me, you're quite famous too with all the visiting artists with your cooking. So tell me about the cooking.
There's a group of volunteers, not just I am one of them, but there's a group of about 8 or 9 volunteers, and we cook biscuits. This was started right when the theatre first reopened, so it's been going for a lot of years. So we cook homemade biscuits for every touring artist that comes through the theatre. And yes, it's one of our secret weapons, I suppose, because all the artists look for them when they come and they love them. It's amazing.
The word's gone out,
Oh,
hasn't
yes,
it?
we can get places, people from America, and they'll know about the cookies, or from England, they'll know about
What
the
sort of cookies are they?
We all bake different biscuits. We all have our favourites, but they're all old-fashioned biscuits,
Like what sort of
like your
thing?
ginger nuts, your dram drops, maybe your choc chip cookie, or all sorts of, coconut cookie, or there are old things like your grandmother probably would have made you, because every Dad's of Stedford that we have in the theatre, and that's twice a year, we run a canteen for the dancers because they're so busy they can't get out of the theatre. So we have this same group of ladies, we all bake our biscuits. We all bake different biscuits. We have about 21, 22 different sorts of biscuits. We have them in bottles all lined up, and everyone comes along and says, I have one of those, I have one of those.
So they get these biscuits for free?
No, we sell them for 50 cents. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right.
We
Great
don't
thing
do it to make money.
But the visiting artists, you give them the
The
biscuits?
visiting artists get those free. They get a platter of biscuits, enough for whoever's in their company. Depends, sometimes there might be only 2 people there, sometimes there might be 20, but every touring artist gets them. No matter which venue they're in, they'll get them.
What a beautiful sort of personal.
It's a very country thing.
Yeah.
And as I said, I'm not ashamed to say that. We're a very technical theatre. We have our technical staff are second to none. I will state that anywhere you like. They're absolutely marvellous, but we keep that little bit of country to stop our sleep.
I love it. You're on Big Little Small Talk. My name's Megan O'Hara-Sullivan, and we're speaking with Margaret Turnbull, who is the president of the Friends of the Empire Theatre. So, Margaret, you were a theatre event manager at the theatre before you retired.
Yes, I was. I started off as a front of house supervisor when the theatre reopened. So I've been there since just before it reopened in 97. Within a couple of years, I became events manager and did that for 22 years, actually.
So you were one of the original employees, one of the first employees when the theatre
yes.
reopened.
Yes,
Yeah, you have really ridden the ride of the Empire Theatre.
I have.
Yeah,
I've lived
yeah.
it, yes.
Did you think that you would come back in a volunteer capacity when you were working
No,
there?
I wasn't sure. When I retired, I was very tired when I retired because I was 68 years old by the time I retired, and I worked long hours. My call to do that. I make no saying about that. It was my call to do it, my nature. But I didn't really know. Vic was he's been a volunteer the whole way through as well. But our president of our Friends of the Empire, because of a bit of ill health, had to retire from being president a couple of years after I retired. And so that's when I became president of the Friends of the Empire, and I became a volunteer. So no, I wouldn't have said that when I first retired, not because I didn't want to. My staff, and I loved my young staff, they used to say, "Oh, you'd make a terrible volunteer."
Oh, damn. Why did they say that?
Oh, probably because I was too bossy. I love them to bits. But yes, and so yeah, I didn't really expect to, but here I am, and I love it. And do you know what? It keeps us alive.
Yeah. So how often would you work or volunteer
Oh,
or be involved
okay.
in some
Yeah, I was going to
capacity?
say I'm involved in a lot of things that don't necessarily become volunteering. We've got lots of volunteers, and I never put myself down for a roster for a volunteer because I don't want to ever take it from any other volunteer. But Jamie knows that if someone's sick or if something happens, she just rings and we'll go down.
You put on
sort of
the
do it.
waistcoat and you're down there.
Yeah, we're down
Wow.
there. And but it's but we do a lot of other things. There's that same group of ladies that do most of the baking. We help with conferences and things like that. We pour coffee and generally look after lost souls and chat to people and do a bit of that country welcome thing.
Well, I have seen you pouring coffees, handing around platters of food.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
did you sort of think to yourself, yeah, I didn't sign up for this?
No. I was well aware that, of what I love doing it.
Yeah. And you rather volunteer. Do you have any time to do any other stuff outside the
No, not really.
Yeah.
Not much. It takes up most of our life, but and we're busy on our terms, and we just enjoy it, and it probably ticks all of our boxes, Vic and I, because it keeps us involved with people, which is very important, and it keeps us involved with older people, but it also involves us with younger people because a lot of younger people work at the theatre, all the technicians and the bar staff and everything, and we get on famously with all of them, and we just love it.
Yeah. Oh, it's like the panacea to happiness, isn't it?
Well, it is, and we believe that it's very important to our well-being because you could easily sit at home and not do anything. You know, we're in our mid-70s, and yet you could sit at home and not do anything, and this keeps us in a very gentle, lovely way occupied and keeps us around people.
Yes, sure. I also heard someone refer to you, Margaret, as a stalwart, loyal, and committed. So I think that she got that quite right. Tell me the story.
I am, yes.
All of that. Tell me the story of how you and Vic met.
Vic and I we met at his brother's 21st, his older brother's 21st. Vic has 4 brothers. We met at his older, and I was there on a date with Col Muller, who used to be the president of the Friends. Well, I used to go out with Col for a while. Vic blames Col. We're all very good friends. But I went to this 21st party with Col and met Vic. And that's how we met.
Yeah.
And we were about, I suppose I was 17 or 18, something at the time. Yeah.
So Cole was the president of the
Yes.
Friends for a very long time.
He was president, I think it was about 23 years or something
Right.
like
And
that.
you took over
I
from
took over
Cole.
from Cole.
Right, right. And Vic keeping a very
He was a
watchful
committee. He's been on the committee a long time, and there was talk. Someone asked him about being president when Cole, but he said no. He said I'd make a lousy president. He said, but I'm a good committee member, and that's very true.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just how it happened.
One other thing that I really want to ask you about is what's your connection with the 10 tenors?
Both our sons were in the 10 tenors. Our eldest son, Jason, who we're going down to visit soon, tomorrow, he was an original member of the 10 tenors, and he toured with them for 10 years, actually, before he retired, so to speak, from that. Our other son, John, who's 2 years younger, he toured for a couple of years, but he then went into sound, so he's a sound engineer now. But yes, they were both involved.
And were the 10 tenors, I thought, one of the first shows at the Empire? If I got that right?
I actually hired them because in amongst everything else in those days, I was secretary of the Toowoomba Stedford, and then I became secretary of the Queenslander Stedford for that particular year because it was in Toowoomba, you know, that It's how it happens, sort of thing. And John Penny was the president, and we needed to raise a few funds to be able to put this Queenslanders Set on, because we wanted to do it at the Empire Theatre. So we came up with the idea that we'd have a concert with the 10 tenors. So it was the first concert they'd ever done, and they had to scramble to know enough songs to sing it. But anyway, it was very successful. But yes, we were the first people to contract them.
Yeah. Not a little bit of nepotism. What do they say? Nepo baby?
Yeah, a nepo baby. Yeah.
Isn't that incredible? Do you have any other children besides
No, just
two
two
boys?
boys.
Yeah, and they sort of loved the theatre because
They,
of
they
your
were
work.
brought up to like the theatre, as was I. And they basically were brought up, music was a very important part of their life. So, but there was never, they were always very involved in choral society as they grew up, still got best friends from those times. And they're involved with music at school. But we were big on not making children in a town of Toowoomba, and it was a town in those days. Don't like being a big fish in a little pond, because I don't think it's healthy for children.
Yeah, and
So we never did.
in what sense?
Well, we didn't ever make them stars, if you know what I mean. They were good, and they were good at what they did and everything like that. And we had a great time. Vic was stage manager for Choral Society, and I was secretary, and so the whole four of us. It was a lovely time because we all just worked together. And then both boys did study music in Brisbane at the conservatorium. And
You're downplaying their career a bit.
oh well, I do.
Very modest.
But Jason was first, and he studied computing. He came to us one night about midnight. He'd been out somewhere, and he came in and he said, "Mum and Dad, I don't ever want to get to be old." 30 was old then. He was about 20. And he said, "I'd like to try to go to the conservatorium." So he did audition and he got in, and he was still studying at the conservatorium when he got asked to be part of that original 10 tenors. And John was much the same. His real love was doing sound and everything, but he could sing as well. So he did two of them for a little bit, but touring wasn't really his cup of tea.
Are you a singer, Margaret?
No, I was a member of Choral Society, but I was strictly a chorus person.
Just mouth the words.
I never
Margaret.
I can't take any credit for my son's talents.
So I haven't really had a chance to talk about your own childhood. Was music a big part of that?
Yes,
Or-
it was. Yes, music was a part of my childhood. I was just saying to Vic the other night, we were chatting, and I said, I don't remember one member of my family, my aunts and uncles and everything, that didn't have a piano in their house. And I said, always it would end up with us standing around the piano singing along, because that's what you did. And so that's how I grew up. My mum played by ear, so she would just play, and so did one of my uncles, and they'd just sit and play. I mean, I learned the piano, but once again, wasn't ever a star at it. But it was just a very big part of our life.
Yeah. You always hear about people standing around the piano and
Yeah.
singing. Was it sort of, were they having a party? Was it that type of, no?
Just
more
to
sort of,
sing along.
Yeah.
And it could be six, they'd come over for a visit or something like that, and we'd end up standing around the piano singing. It was just something that happened. It's just a sing-along. It wasn't a particular party or anything like that.
Sounds
It's
like
just
something
something-
idyllic.
It's just part of my life. It's just,
Yeah.
that's how I grew up.
Yeah. And is it sort of like an Irish background, or what type
No,
of
it was
family
German,
were
to
you?
be quite
German,
honest.
right,
Yeah,
okay,
German and English. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was just, I don't know, but that's just how it was. Just singing around the piano. There was nothing formal about it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It was just singing
Yeah.
and standing around the piano.
Who do you think has been the most influential person in your life?
Oh, I'd say my mum and my dad, because I think maybe not so much nowadays, but I think that your parents have a tremendous impact on what you're like, and I would like to say that.
What's your
in
sort of
quite a way.
lasting memory of growing up in Toowoomba? Where do you go back to in your mind when you think
When
of
I
home?
go back to a memory of when I was just in year one or preschool, I can go back to a memory of that. And we were just well loved and looked after. We didn't have all that much money, but I was a princess, but not in a monetary form or anything like that. I have a group of schoolmates from year one that we all keep in touch.
Oh gosh, where did you go to school in year one?
East School. But we were chatting the other day we have our own WhatsApp group very windy. And I said, "Oh, I can remember, when it was cold, I remember my mum, we used to get up at 5:30 in the morning, and she would heat up a hot water bottle and slide it into my bed near my feet. And my dad, I can remember, I have a memory of him coming and picking me up out of my bed, carrying me out to the kitchen where the wood stove was in a big cane chair and putting me there, and my clothes would be there to get dressed there.
Yeah, you
His
remember
sister would,
being really cared for.
yeah,
Where did they live?
just near Lily Street, which is a little street just up from the Cobb and Co Museum, just there.
Wow. And you're friends with someone from grade 1?
We've got about 30 or 40 people,
Oh,
and
God.
we have a group. We're not meeting this year because we're all a bit busy doing things, but the last 3 years we did, and we will, and we keep in contact.
I love the fact that you're on the WhatsApp, you know?
Oh, yeah,
Embracing the modern
we have,
technology.
yes, and they all watched the Remember Toowoomba When. So there was a great conflab this morning for quite a time about something that was on today. But no, it's quite funny and it's quite lovely.
Yeah.
It was 54 in our grade 1 class because it's just.
And sort of thoughts on how Toowoomba has evolved
Oh,
as
look,
a really long-term
it's
resident?
it's been a long-term involvement, and it's involved so much.
You
It
happy
was-
with where we are?
I think it's evolved very quickly in the last 5 or 6 years, and I think we might have to do a tiny bit of catching up because of. But I do love the way it's evolved, and I'm very proud of Toowoomba, and I'll talk anybody into coming. I had a couple of visitors last week. They were driving from Sydney. They wanted to see the theatre and rang me, and I said, "Oh, yes, I'll come down and show them around." So I went and showed them around, and by the end of that time, they were going back to Sydney, but now they're going to fly up to Toowoomba and have a holiday here and go to a show. And not because I was just telling them all about it, and they fell in love with Toowoomba while they were here.
So it's you who's driving up the house prices, Margaret. Hey, tell me why you are invested in the youth so much. Like, why are you so energised by that?
I can't probably tell you a reason, but they energise me in a big way. Always have. When the whole 22 years I was working, I had lots of young bar staff. They'd come to work for me for about 14 years. A lot of them had a few problems. I love nothing more than taking them on.
You mean like socially coming from not such great...
Yeah, so someone didn't come from such great things. Some were just a little bit naughty, but not bad. And I just loved nurturing them, and I loved looking after them. They used to always say, Margaret's really nice, they'd say to news people that had come, but if you don't get cranky, just run.
Well, I won't ask you about when the electronic scanning thing came in, because I know that was quite controversial, wasn't it? But what about you, Margaret? What do you think in your life is the most difficult thing you've ever done?
Oh, it's a really tiny thing, but my second son had a lot of health problems. He was born with cerebral palsy. You'd never know it to see him as a big, strapping 6'4" boy. But he had to have major back surgery in his early 30s. He's 49 now. But the hardest thing I've ever done was that was in Brisbane, and I was a very busy person at the theatre. I went down to Brisbane and I was with him. But the hardest thing I ever done after he came out of surgery and I knew he was all right, I had to turn my back and come back to Toowoomba and go to work. And that was probably one of the hardest. That sounds like a silly thing.
It's not a silly thing at all.
Probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. And yeah, that's just we
being
got
a mother.
Yeah, it's being a mother.
Yeah. Is there anything, Margaret, that scares you about your future?
2 things that scare me about my future. If I lose my ability to be an active person, but more than that, if I lose my ability to think. Because I have this mantra that I like to learn something new every day. I love embracing new things. And that's where I love the theatre too, because the text will teach me to do things, that technical things keep me. I'm not quite as up to date now as when I was working, but still, I just love embracing new things.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, it's just my
It's
nature.
so refreshing. Yeah. Do you think the sort of style of theatre, is there a whole lot more swearing, or is it a whole lot more sort of, risque, or it just doesn't worry you?
No, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
I don't like, probably my biggest hate is comedians that swear for the sake of it, because I don't find it funny at all. I'm not being a prude about it. I just don't see it. But honestly, I have a fairly open mind because of my liking of the youth.
Yeah, that's right. It's wonderful. Were you involved when it was at the Empire with the Arj Barker thing, wasn't it? Where the woman had the baby and was breastfeeding the baby,
Yeah.
and the baby made a crying noise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Look, honestly, there's many artists that will actually request no one. They might have no one under 16. They will have no babies. And they'll mostly be comedians. And you know why, when it comes down to it? Because they're not comfortable with having them in the audience. And I respect that from that artist. But yeah, it doesn't matter that it doesn't happen sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's quite common for, I think the artists are more au fait with the whole situation now, and they'll state that no one's to come in.
Right, yeah.
And I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Put you off your game a little bit. Margaret, are you a follower of the Royals?
Look, I won't say I'm a follower. I have an interest and I have a respect.
Who's your favourite royal then?
Oh, look, I wouldn't like to. I don't know.
Oh, come on.
Probably, look, I'll have to say Prince Charles and Princess Anne are on my age. They are. We grew up together. So I suppose I've known them the longest.
All right. Well, we'll have two. We'll have those two. And I would imagine that you would love a bit of dancing. Do you like to dance? Do you have a song that can't keep you off the dance?
I loved dancing, as in doing tap dancing and all that sort of thing when I was young. And I did ballroom dancing. But I'm not a person that will run out and dance now. I love music and I love movement. And you'll see me, my feet will start going when I'm sitting down or something like that. But I'm not someone who'll run to a dance floor and dance. I don't know why, but I'm just not.
Never like that.
No.
And Margaret, just quickly tell all those people who are busting to volunteer and become one of the friends, because I think it sounds like an incredible group of literally friends of each other as well as the Empire. How do they do that? How do they go about doing it?
They can do it a few ways. They can go onto the Empire Theatre website, which has a special section for the Friends of the Empire, and it's very informative. It's got nomination forms and things like that. They can call into the box office of the theatre, and there's folders with all the information in, readily available. The box office staff can do that. So that's probably the two best ways to become friends.
Wonderful. Well, I think you've really sold it to me. I might just have to look at it. Now, did you tell me that you might not have a song that can't keep you off the dance floor, but do you have a favourite song from a musical show or something?
Yes, I love songs from musicals. One of my most favourite songs, I have two favourite songs. One's a bit sentimental and one from Beauty and the Beast, which is the song Beauty and the Beast. I love that song. And the other one is a song that my children both sang when they were young. And it's called I Am But a Small Voice. It's still around, but both my kids had the opportunity to sing the solo part of it with a choir of older children singing around them. But it'll still make me.
It'll still
It would make me cry.
Shiver up the spine. Margaret, I can't remember when I've enjoyed an interview so much. Just you are an inspiration. You really are. And I think, everyone in Toowoomba and surrounds owes you a debt of gratitude. But, to see your spark and your energy is just inspirational.
Well, thank you very much. But that's what keeps me alive.
Yeah, it's been wonderful.
It's great. I enjoy it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being my guest today. That's it for this week. Thanks for joining me on Big Little Small Talk. I hope you can make the time to join me next week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favourite podcast app.
You've been listening to a 102.7 FM Toowoomba original podcast. For more podcasts or to listen to live and local Toowoomba radio, please visit 1027.com.au or download the Community Radio Plus app.